Following the first 10,000 kilometers ridden on my Tenere 700 on the OEM Pirelli Scorpion tyres, I felt it was time to go a little more extreme in the tyre department. These Mitas E07Plus tyres are an extremely popular adventure tyre designed for 60% on-road and 40% off-road use. Let's start with installation. And let me prefix this by saying I have never changed tyres on my own before. I usually just drop the bike off at a local shop, get them to do it. So this time I enlisted the help of a mate, and we dove in boots and all. I found that rolling the bike onto some old decking wood I had laying around, I could slide my old motocross stand under the bike and it would sit there quite nicely on the skid plate. The manual says not to support the Tenere 700 by the bash plate bars, but I took my chances. Wheels off, deflated, and we got cracking on breaking the bead. Then to stretch the sidewall over the rim, remove the tube, and do it again with the other side of the tyre. Old tyres off, now we started to struggle with fitting the new Mitas E07 Pluses. When they say they have a stiff sidewall, they're not joking. A lot of swearing, grunting, and many tyre levers helped. It did take us about 4 hours to do both wheels. Also, while the weight was off the swing arm, now was a good time to remove, grease and replace all the linkage bolts. If you own a Tenere 700, do this before you ride too much further. There doesn't seem to be much, if any, grease on these bolts from factory. Now I don't want to bore you with all the details, but long story short, the front was just as much of a struggle as the back, if not more. Both tyres fitted, back on the bike, and time to go for a ride to see how these Mitas E07 Plus tyres handle both on-road and off. Out of the gate, and the first ride was 500 odd kilometres north following State Highway 1 through Bulls, then over to Wanganui and up State Highway 4 through to Ratahi, Taumarunui and Tikawiti, and then finally ending in Raglan. Most of this was tar seal, and I have to say I wasn't completely confident on the Mitas E07 Pluses, especially in some of the shady wet corners. I never actually felt the bike slip, but there's nothing wrong with being cautious. We made the 500 kilometre trek without much drama, looking forward to the next day and the challenge of 390 kilometres with a mixture of seal and gravel. The next day on the gravel, I found the Mitas E07 Pluses hooked up well. Mitas say they're a 60-40 tyre, but I'm sure they're more of a 50-50. Suddenly I had more traction on the gravel than I'd ever had before. Front end grip was great and I was able to point the bike anywhere I wanted and not worry about the loose stuff either. There were a couple of slippery, muddy corners which dented my confidence somewhat, but overall I felt I had more control off-road than any tyre I've ridden on previously. I was carrying a couple of spare inner tubes, tyre levers, a pump, basic tools for the bike, but not once did I need any of it. Typical, carry everything and don't need it, but as soon as you leave something at home, that's when you're going to have a bad day. We followed the route through some beautiful farmland in the King Country, finding ourselves in Tikawiti for lunch. We were just sitting down to a long black and a toasted sandwich when tail-end Charlie comes up to us and says we need to get a wriggle on and suggests we take a shortcut, cutting 90 kilometres out of the route and heading from where we were in Tikawiti through to Waitomo Caves and then on to Tianga. This road was one of the best roads I've ridden on the T7. A beautiful lefty-righty, uppy-downy ribbon of flowing tar seal, and all of my worries about the Mitas E07 Plus tyres, in the shady corners and the wet stuff, the surface changes etc. were gone. We finally finished off the day winding along the Raglan-Kawhia coast, with the sun getting low in the sky, not a cloud to be seen, salt in the air, and the sea all the way out to our left. If there's such a thing as golden hour, this was it. I finished the day confident that I had made a good choice as far as tyres, but the adventure was not over yet. The next day we had to saddle up and complete the final leg of the journey, the return 500 odd k's back to Wellington. We started in overcast but dry conditions and things were warming up as we approached National Park. But coming up to the plateau, just past Raurimu, the temperature plummeted. The rain came in sideways and suddenly we'd gone from a mild early autumn day to the middle of winter. We put our heads down and powered on towards Ratahi, but got the message just before the turn off to Owakuni that State Highway 4 was blocked, so detoured to the Big Carrot for a break. Unfortunately, the road was closed for some time, so we carried on back to Wairu and down State Highway 1. Just north of Hunterville, we took a left turn and took in the brilliant road that is Vinegar Hill, then down through the Manawatu Flats, down to Shannon and on to Wellington. Through all of these conditions, the Mitas E07 tyres did an incredibly good job maintaining traction and keeping the rubber side down. They're definitely not a tyre for you if all you're going to do is some light gravel once in a blue moon. But if you have aspirations of taking your adventure bike to places usually only frequented by enduro riders, then yes, the Mitas E07Plus would be a brilliant choice of tyre. The hard sidewalls are noticeable and let you know exactly what's going on underneath you. Though, do take it easy in cold and wet conditions. The big knobs are great in gravel, but they do slip on tar seal, especially when crossing painted lines or cat's eyes. I've since challenged my Mitas E07s on some rockier, muddier conditions, and I'm happy to say they are excellent. I headed into the Akatarawas and got some sideways looks from the regular dirt bike lads. I took on a rocky hill climb and was very impressed with the level of grip. For more video evidence, keep an eye on my social media channels. And if you're looking for a tyre for your adventure bike, I can definitely recommend the Mitas E07 Plus.